What's up, everybody? WASvsGB joined alongside my colleague at Packers.com, Mike Spofford. It is Wednesday, but that means it's also a football Friday or Saturday because tomorrow the Green Bay Packers are welcoming the Washington Commanders to Lambeau Field, 7:15 p.m. Central Start Time, a game that can be viewed on Prime. I should also mention Packers Preview presented by Microsoft Copilot. My co-pilot, Mike Spofford, and I will be here for the next 10 to 15 minutes answering all of your questions on YouTube, X, and Facebook. Send those through. Our social staff will toss them over to me. Before we jump into it, we will quickly talk about the fact that we did get the Packers' final injury report. Crazy, because it was 4 days ago they were playing a football game. We now know what the official designations are going to be for this matchup, though, against Washington. 5 players questionable, 2 ruled out. That's Brenton Cox Jr. and Bo Melton. The 5 questionable: Nate Hobbs was questionable on Sunday, did not play. 2 offensive linemen in Aaron Banks and Zach Tom, safety Zane Anderson, and defensive lineman Micah Parsons as he continues to monitor and work his way back from that back injury. To me, Mike, I obviously wrote the story. I got it up on Packers.com a little while ago. Nate Hobbs is probably the big story here, though. Was close last week, didn't go. Potentially what his availability looks like for tomorrow.
Yeah, he's been out for a long time, obviously. The Packers are waiting for that opportunity for him to be back, for that secondary to, get back to full strength, although now Bo Melton is down, reserve cornerback. So, full strength is sort of a relative term once you get an NFL season started. But going to be watching the offensive linemen closely as well when the inactive list is announced 90 minutes before kickoff. Tomorrow night, we will see if one or both or neither of those starters is good to go on this short week.
Okay, I will also mention very quickly, Washington, only 2 players that have a designation in this thing. That's Tressway, their punter, as a back, and then Dietrich Wise Jr. with a knee injury. Both of those players are questionable. I will also mention, because I think we might have had a little bit of a delay getting up on some of the social media platforms, Mike Spofford, WASvsGB, Packers Preview, brought to you by Microsoft Copilot. We'll be answering all of your questions on X, Facebook, and YouTube. Submit those through. Be happy to answer them. The other aspect of this with those offensive linemen, though, Mike, that I would like you to touch on very quickly for the people that might not have actually seen the game or didn't see exactly what happened in the second half. What was the domino effect? What was the change-up, so to speak, when they lost Tom at right tackle and also later on Aaron Banks at left guard?
Yeah, so when Zach Tom went down, what the Packers did is they put in the newcomer, whom they acquired at the at the end of training camp for a future 6th-round draft pick, that being Darian Kennard. He filled in at right tackle, and then when Aaron Banks went down, he got hurt on Josh Jacobs' touchdown run there in the fourth quarter. When he went down, then Jordan Morgan, who had been rotating at right guard with Sean Ryan, then stepped in to take Banks' place at left guard. And then on the final offensive series, Anthony Belton, the rookie 2nd-round pick, he stepped in at right tackle just for the last 3 offensive snaps of the game. So those are the guys who filled in those spots, and we'll see how things shake out tomorrow night.
All right, jump into some of the questions here. My guy, Kyle Cousineau on YouTube, 3:15 p.m. coffee. Wes, you're even crazier than I thought. Kyle, it's one thing to know about me, buddy, and you know a lot about me. I'll drink coffee at any point of the day. I used to cover high school football, Friday night football. And on my way back from like Green Bay Southwest or Bayport, I would stop at Starbucks when a lot of the area Starbucks were still open. I'd grab coffee at Starbucks on my way back to the Green Bay Press-Gazette back in the day.
Wow.
3:15 is nothing, bro. Now, is this healthy to do? Probably not, but it's how I get by. All right, Brett from GB, our longtime friend and inbox reader, asks, ready for winter warning? We're getting the all-white uniforms again, Michael. And somebody was asking me this, and I believe this is true. They won both of the matchups last year when they busted out the all-whites.
Yeah, against Houston at home and then against Seattle on the road.
2 big ones.
Yeah, and I thought both times the Packers wore them. The Houston game was in the afternoon in October, and it was a super sunny day. Yeah. I thought it looked really, really sharp out there. And then under the lights in Seattle, that was a night game. It looked pretty cool then too. So now we'll see under the lights at Lambeau Field with the all whites. It's a good look regardless.
Great look. I've really enjoyed it. Now obviously having the white helmet attached to everything now. As you can see in the background here, Tyler Gajewski, Ethan Bacon doing a great job of setting our stage and whatnot. YouTube, Zachary Green. Obviously, the Packers proved they can stop the run on Sunday, but how different is it also to stop a mobile quarterback like Jaden Daniels? And who might we see step up to make sure that that happens?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and not to give away any secrets, but my one last look column for tomorrow is on this exact topic of mobile quarterbacks, and the Packers did a really good job last year defensively against the mobile quarterbacks. There was really the Caleb Williams in Chicago, the first meeting against the Bears, was the only time the Packers really had trouble or kind of really were damaged by a running quarterback last year. So what's interesting is that, as we talked about a lot in the offseason, Wes, Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper as starting linebackers playing side by side, they didn't actually play a lot together last year, and both of those linebackers and their speed on the field together, that does change the equation a little bit in terms of, or at least gives you some other options in terms of dealing with the mobile quarterback. And then you throw Micah Parsons into the mix as well, just because he can chase down anybody. I mean, he has that explosive speed. And Micah Parsons is a guy who sacked Jaden Daniels 4.5 times in 2 games against Washington last year, playing for the Cowboys. So I think the Packers are going to have choices. They're going to have options. They'll have a plan for Daniels. And as Jeff Hafley said yesterday when we heard from the coordinators at the podium, you don't just pick one thing or one strategy and do that for the entire game. You have to mix it up. You have to do different things. You have to keep that quarterback guessing as to exactly how you're defending him in that running aspect of things.
Absolutely. I almost said Renee Gabriel. Hi, Renee. Our social media manager is back. And I almost read her name instead of the actual reader. This one's on X. Fishy Guru, I believe it is. How is the O-line looking this week, and are we worried about the Commanders' pass rush? Mike, I have one word: pancakes. Clock it. That's for Ellie Culver.
Okay.
But maybe some pancakes could help here, right? I mean, you look at the way here. Okay, so all kidding aside, and all joking aside, I answered a question in Insider Inbox, which you'll be editing here shortly, and we'll run tomorrow on Packers.com. Somebody had asked about this, like, what are we expecting from this defensive front from Washington? My case was, it's not Detroit, but they're not pushovers either. There's a lot to worry about with Washington. With Detroit, you have one of the best pass rushers in the game in Aiden Hutchinson that's anchoring that whole thing. Washington doesn't do it that way. But you have a guy like Frankie Louvu, who can be an all-pro linebacker, can also get after the quarterback. You know, they have a lot of heady players in that front seven. Von Miller's now incorporated in that after they added him later on. Still plenty of things for Green Bay to worry about up front, particularly if they're maybe missing an offensive lineman or two as well.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, the Washington front, they ended up recording, I believe the number was 8 quarterback hits on Russell Wilson of the Giants last week. They sacked him a couple times. Yeah. 8 quarterback hits is a lot in one game. Now, obviously, the Giants were throwing the ball quite a bit because they were behind for the vast majority of that game. But that being said, yeah, you mentioned, Von Miller is in that mix. Daron Payne is that defensive tackle on the interior who's really become a reliable veteran guy that defense counts on. And Bobby Wagner is, that linebacker in the middle, and you never know what he's going to do. I mean, he can be a second-level player. He can drop back into coverage. He can get after the quarterback too. So, your original point, though, is the most salient one, is that this is different than facing the Lions, where you have Hutchinson and okay, you're gonna chip him with tight ends and running backs, and you can focus a lot of the pass protection in that direction because you're not as concerned with the other guys. Washington is built differently as far as the defense.
Daniel from South Broadway. Short week. You think the offense will bring out some trickery in this one? It was funny listening to Matt LaFleur. He said they did try some trickery in the Detroit game. Didn't really trick so much.
That 3rd and 1 at the end of the first half there with Jordan Love like shuffling off to the side, and then the direct snap to Josh Jacobs.
And a sweep to Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the end around. Yeah,
that he joked about didn't really get that many yards, but hey, you're trying.
Well, but on 3rd and 1, the 3 yards that Tucker Kraft got, that would have been a conversion if it had been, the 3rd and 1 trick play did not work, however, and no, I mean, we'll see. I mean, Matt LaFleur is not one who's drawn up all kinds of crazy trick things, or at least hasn't used them a lot in games. But heck, you never know these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, a few more questions here. He's Mike Spofford. I'm Wes Hodkowitz. They're flowing now into our social media channel here. Let's go with this one. This is from Gilly Gang. Wes, from another Wes. Wesley, not Weston. Not the cool West. That's the second cool West. Weston is the coolest West. Okay, I'm done. Did you guys notice how much Golden got open on Sunday? This kid is going to have a huge coming out party very, very soon. I think you were the one that even remarked to me during the game. The amount of separation that he creates is something else. And I think it goes back to the entire toolbox that he presents as a receiver. There's a reason why he was drafted in the first round. And It's not just the 4.29 speed.
Yep.
This guy's an all-around playmaker.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And as we talked about, the Packers have a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. But we also know, based on what we've seen from Matt LaFleur over the years, and from Jordan Love even in just his couple years as a starter, if somebody gets the hot hand, I mean, if somebody is producing and the defense is not adjusting to take that guy away, then that guy is going to get the football. And so we'll see. I mean, I think Matthew Golden is going to have one of those types of games at some point here sooner rather than later. Will it be on Thursday night against Washington? I don't know. But the other thing, too, to point out with Golden is that it was his underneath crossing route that drew the safety up for Detroit, the safety who was in the middle of the field, that allowed Romeo Doubs to go deep for the 48-yarder on the first play of what was the Packers' third drive of the game, and then which then, of course, led to that touchdown, and the Packers had 17 points on the board in their first 3 possessions. So, yes, Matthew Golden is not going to be a secret to any defense that goes up against him. It's already there on film, and defenses are going to pay attention to him.
Your friend Randy on Facebook, Mike and Wes, what is your reaction about Christian Watson signing a contract with the Green Bay Packers, one more season on the extension?
I think it's great.
I think it's fantastic.
I look at this, and I actually said this in my midweek chat not long before we turned the cameras on here. This is a win-win for both sides. Yep. This is a good deal for the Packers, and it's a good deal for Christian Watson as well, with coming back from the ACL, because now. And everything we've heard is that his rehab is going great. He's ahead of schedule, and they're probably going to have to hold him back even a little bit for when he wants to get out there. But that being said, that's sort of the point, in that Christian Watson was in a contract year. Yep. But now he doesn't have to worry about, I've got to go out there and get back on the field absolutely as soon as possible and produce and put up all these numbers and everything so that I can get my next contract. He has a 1-year extension now. He doesn't have to worry about that part of it as he comes back from the injury. He can be worked in, brought up to speed, and he can just help the team whenever he's called upon to help.
Yeah, and it gives him some security. Obviously, still looking for that life-changing second contract.
Absolutely.
That's what everybody wants, and deservedly so. But at the same time, now it's not so much about rushing out there, right? Yep. Now it's like you can look at this thing, hey, October comes around, you want to practice him for a few weeks without having to really put him out there yet, if that's what the Packers decide is what's in his best interest. The Packers want to have Christian Watson back for the stretch run.
Yes.
In addition to the fact that Christian Watson wants to be healthy going into this offseason and hopefully having a complete year next year and then get to where ultimately he wants to be. This question is from Tommy K on YouTube. Do you think as the season wears on, we'll see a narrowing of the number of receivers getting targets as certain players rise up, or that it'll continue to get heavily spread out like we saw on Sunday? A couple thoughts on this. The first thing that comes to mind for me is that old phrase, like if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Mm-hmm. I think this is what the Packers offense is. We've seen this now for 2 years with Jordan Love. It is at its peak when it has multiple guys stepping up. Matthew Golden had a handful of targets, played the snaps he played, but I thought had a huge impact on this game. Tucker Kraft had a few touches, but that 15-yard touchdown was as big as anything gets. Jaden Reed, 3 catches, 45 yards and a touchdown. I thought he played tremendous. Yeah, it requires a certain amount of unselfishness, but at the same time, it allows Jordan Love to make what is in the best interest of this offense. Take, for example, this. Last week, the Washington Commanders against the New York Giants. it almost seemed to me that Russell Wilson is completely locked on to Neighbors.
Yeah.
And trying to get, he had 12 targets in that game.
Yeah.
5 catches. When you're able to spread it around a little bit more, stretch a defense a little bit more, that is where I think you can really pick teams apart. And so, how will this thing play out? Well, a lot of times injuries sometimes dictate this. We at no point thought the Packers would get as banged up as they did at wideout during training camp. But there we were in Indianapolis, and obviously going up against Seattle and in that joint practice. The Packers have depth. Be appreciative for that depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to your point about when somebody, shows you who they are, believe them, we've seen over the years Matt LaFleur builds game plans that are very opponent specific.
Yes.
And so as this season goes along, there are going to be instances where the coaches, Matt LaFleur and his offensive coaches, are going to be looking at the upcoming opposing team and saying, hey, if we can get Jaden Reed on this particular matchup, or if we can get Romeo Doubs in this matchup, or Tucker Kraft in this matchup, then you start building the game plan around some of those certain concepts because of the team that you're playing against and what their tendencies are. So that's the other factor in all this. It's not, Matt LaFleur is not necessarily going into a game saying, okay, I want to make sure 9 or 10 different guys catch passes here. If that's the way it evolves, that's the way it evolves. If somebody gets the hot hand, somebody gets the hot hand. They're also trying to isolate certain guys and get certain matchups against, particular coverages or individuals on the defensive side and then take advantage of those. So that's how game plans are built, and that's what changes week to week as you go through a season like this.
A couple more minutes here before we get Mike Spofford home. YouTube, Jeremy Hadler, what do you make of Savion Williams and Matthew Golden in the kickoff and punt returns? We talked to Rich Bisaccia on Tuesday. He said there's a lot of options.
Yep.
There will continue to be a lot of options. What I liked about it was 2 things. One, it showed you Savion Williams, we could find ways to get him on the field and get him involved, whether it was on the kickoff returns, whether it was them trying the end around. It didn't, that particular one didn't really work, but they're going to be looking to design some stuff for this young man, as we saw throughout training camp. Extremely talented, great body type, and I thought did a really nice job with his hands throughout camp when he was healthy.
Sure.
Matthew Golden, this is just another way for him to affect the game.
Yep.
So, now we'll see how they approach Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon had a huge assignment in that game against Detroit, and I thought he aced it. And it required him not to be really out there for the kickoff returns, to have him pretty much defense only. When we were talking throughout the offseason about when Nixon was talking about, he's a cornerback, and there were questions about the kickoff return. For me, using Keyshawn Nixon on kickoff returns could be a real game situation plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's what the Packers are going to do. That's what Wes Hodkowitz would do.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a playoff format or whether it's in a late season situation. But allowing young guys to get that opportunity early on, I don't see there's any detriment to that at all.
Yeah, I like the idea of giving those young guys another opportunity to be involved and another opportunity to get their hands on the ball when, as we were just talking about, on offense, there are all of these different mouths to feed. The other thing I would say about Keyshawn Nixon is what happened in the Lions game is an example of something you and I were talking about, I think, during a training camp practice, where the Lions, the first points that they scored in the game, they went down the field. It was like 16 plays. They took 9.5 minutes off the clock, and the defense gets the stop, and the Lions kick the field goal. Well, Keyshawn Nixon's been out there on the field defensively for all 16 of those plays in all 9.5 minutes. After that happens, you don't put him back there on the goal line to then return the kickoff. He needs to get on the sideline. He needs to catch his breath. He needs to rest up for the next defensive series. So that's why you want to have these other options. Now, that being said, in some situations, if it's the opening kickoff of the game when everybody's rested, or if it's the opening kickoff of the second half after you've had the halftime break, maybe that's where, okay, Key, go back there, see if you can get your hands on the ball and make something happen here when the wind is fresh, when the legs are fresh, all that kind of stuff. So I like the fact that the Packers have choices and options here.
Can I tell you one thing I really like about the punt return thing that Green Bay's doing too? And we'll see how you feel about this. They have Matthew Golden, their first-round pick. They have Jaden Reed, their second-round pick from 2 years ago.
A couple years ago, yeah.
As their primary punt returners right now. Randall Cobb was exceptional in that capacity right away in his career. Now, kickoff returns, I think, is a different beast. There's a certain amount of injury risk, I think, involved with that, whereas the punt plays
Well,
a lot more.
and Cobb did that too.
Yeah.
His
Right.
very first game, he took 108 yards. But yeah,
But I'm talking about the risk of injury. There's a lot more
Yeah.
finesse on the punt returns,
Yep.
right? I've always felt, and maybe Randall would disagree with me on this, but I always felt we were robbed of a little bit of Randall Cobb's greatness because the Packers so early on looked to get him as just a receiver, to get him off the punt returns. And they had to go through some real problems. Jeremy Ross took over that spot, had some fumble issues. It took a while for the Packers to find a punt returner they could really depend on. And Jeff Janis ended up kind of handling it for a while. I like the fact that they have not graduated Reed and now obviously are looking at Golden possibly doing it. That's a very important play. And I'm not saying you got to take it to the house every time, but you got to be confident in who's going to be bringing that ball back for you and keeping the offense on the field afterwards. I've really appreciated that Green Bay has taken that tact as opposed to trying to find these replacements for him. Obviously, if McCole Hardman would have been on the roster and he's there, maybe he's a candidate for it, but he's not right now.
yeah.
So they have guys that, if that's our best option, Rich Bisaccia has exercised that best option. Okay, we got to get running here, but a couple quick questions here, and then we'll go.
Okay.
We'll go with this one from. There's three I want to get to. Okay, Joe on YouTube. Do you think Hafley will use what worked last season so effectively against mobile quarterbacks? Cooper spying Williams drop, or will Parsons add a different look? So there's that aspect to it. Somebody else, this was Andre Daniels on Facebook. Do you believe in Cooper like I do? I believe he'll be an All-Pro. That's what's exciting to me. And now I'm just dominating. I'll give you a chance to talk here in a second.
You keep going.
But I remember Mike Turgovac saying this to us when the whole Colin Kaepernick thing was happening in 2013, 2014. Clay Matthews was their best option to spy him. But Clay Matthews was also their best pass rusher.
Right.
So are you going to take that player out of the pass rush game to basically be an insurance policy? That's a tough bargain to make.
Yeah, it is.
What's cool about the way that this Packers defense is configured now, they have the linebackers to do any of this stuff.
Yep.
Quay Walker can do it. Edgerrin Cooper obviously can do it. I think Teron Hopper, if he's out there, has the capability of doing it. Oh, and then by the way, you have Micah Parsons, who has that 4-4 ability in him. So the question, to me, it's really up to what Jeff Hafley wants to decide here. But I honestly don't think there's really a wrong answer.
Yeah. I think last year, what I liked about what Hafley did last year when he came in, and obviously you're facing Jalen Hurts in Brazil in week 1, right off the bat, and you had Anthony Richardson in week 2 for the Colts. You were facing mobile quarterbacks right off the bat last year, and that had been a problem for Green Bay for so many years. And Hafley kind of fixed it, and not letting those quarterbacks. I mean, the Packers were very disciplined in their rush lanes and everything, not letting those quarterbacks hurt them with their legs. But we also saw that sometimes the rush to contain was almost a little too passive.
Yeah.
That was the word that Hafley used yesterday, is that you can't just be passive all the time either. And I think he's going into it this year knowing his personnel better, knowing what they did last year as far as kind of what worked and maybe what didn't work quite so well, although a lot of what they did work well. It's okay now. He wants to be able to have 3 or 4 different strategies and then pick and choose in certain situations what he wants to do, so that quarterback, that mobile quarterback on the other side, doesn't necessarily know when he walks up under center on a crucial 3rd down. Yep. Okay, are they spying me or are they not? Or are they, are they going to come after me, or are they, and if he doesn't know that, that gives the defense just that little couple extra seconds of advantage when he can't figure it out until after the snap occurs.
Yep.
So
you know what I think? I think Jeff Hafley is a tremendous artist, and I feel like the Packers have now given him every potential different color in the box in terms of the crayons. I mean, this is every type of pass rusher, every type of corner. You talk about Xavier McKinney yesterday, man. I thought Hafley made an excellent point when he said, he had 5 tackles in that game. He didn't have a pass breakup. He didn't have an interception. So everybody just thinks they don't talk about Xavier McKinney. And McKinney had a real important role to play.
Yeah.
It just seems like all the paint is available for him to do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, when you talk about all the different colors for Jeff Hafley, who was the first guy for the Green Bay Packers in the 2025 regular season to blitz? Carrington Valentine coming off of the slot. Who would have predicted that, right? That was the first blitz he called, was number 24, and he's a perimeter cornerback. That's what we're talking about in terms of Jeff Hafley knowing his personnel, having worked with these guys and seen what all these guys can do. And then, now you've thrown a 3-time All-Pro in Micah Parsons into the mix as well.
Tulio Fonseca on YouTube from Brazil. Tulio, I hope you're doing well. Who will be the last player out of the tunnel tomorrow? Micah. Parsons had a phenomenal quote about this after the game, saying he got that experience. He really appreciated it. He mentioned the conversation he had with Matt LaFleur. LaFleur calling him the night before the game saying, we're going to embrace you. We want you to be the guy that leads us out of the tunnel to get us into the game. The reaction was extraordinary. We'll see what the Packers choose to do. But the point Parsons made was he's happy giving it back to the captains. He's happy giving it back to the Xavier McKinneys. And to McKinney's point, he's like, yeah, whatever works for this team, I'm cool with. The thing is, I'm guessing we're probably going to get the offense, I would think, in this.
Just for the variety.
So I'm guessing you're getting Jordan Love.
It's probably going to be probably going to be Jordan Love. But hey, Jordan Love coming out of that tunnel under the lights with the all white, and the shiny white helmet and everything, that'll be pretty cool.
Okay, really answer these very quick, and then we're going to get out of here. This is from Matt. That's what all Renee said. Do you see any similarities in the play style between Deebo Samuel and Savion? Very different body types. But I think we've all kind of said this. Savion, it's almost that Cordarrelle Patterson sort of comp, where it's a taller guy in that 220-pound range, but has some ball carrier type traits and attributes. In addition to the fact that he even played some quarterback when he was at TCU.
Yeah, I can definitely see the similarities there. Obviously, that experience-wise, they're completely different players, and Deebo strikes me, I guess, if I were to contrast them, Deebo strikes me as a guy who is probably more likely to break tackles and run through tackles, whereas I think Savion has maybe a little bit more of the slipperiness to him, where he might be able to make guys miss. Yeah. So that's where I would kind of draw the contrast.
Deebo definitely has more of the running back type, true running back traits. And kudos to Washington. It really looks like they're unlocking him. He was targeted 7 times, had the 19-yard
big time touchdown last week. Yeah.
All right. Dude, we got it. We were just about to sign off here too, Tom. But Tom Grassi on YouTube.
There he is.
Duke Bobber, our boss, Duke's going to be upset that I said his name, but he was saying, he's like, Tom got really, he's important now. He's streaming his own shows on YouTube and NFL games on YouTube. He's big time now.
Big time in us last week.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
And now Tom pops back in to prove Duke wrong. Hey, Mike and Wes, longtime viewer, first-time commenter, with Wes wearing red glasses, do you think that'll give the Commanders the edge tomorrow night? Well, Tom, if you know anything about my glasses, they're Ferrari. And if you know anything about Ferrari, it's a lot of coming up short. So I would think, if anything, that probably works to the Packers' benefit that I'm wearing these glasses. But certainly good to see Tom. Ellie Culver, our social media intern, is like, say your mom. Ellie, your mom. Are you happy? Your mom. I said it. Do you want to end on that? Is that how we should be on this?
This is your show,
it's
bro.
It's my show. Your show is unscripted. My show is Packers Preview. All right, before we take off, thanks again, Tom. Thanks, Ellie. Packers key to victory. They're trying to start the season 2-0 for the first time since 2020. This is the first time in week 2 they've played on a Thursday night since 2012. What do the Packers have to do to get the job done?
2 things at the top of the list for me. One is to do what you did last week against the Lions defensively, which was to limit the big plays. Don't let them make those explosive plays down the field, because Jaden Daniels and those offensive weapons Washington has, those guys can be really explosive. The other thing is I would like to see the Packers get the running game, get Josh Jacobs going sooner. Now, if Washington is going to sell out to stop the run and put 8-9 in the box, then Jordan Love, you got to throw the ball, let the guys win the one-on-ones on the outside and throw the ball down the field. But if you can get Josh Jacobs going early in this game, we saw when he got going in the second half, 58 yards against that Lions defense in the second half. That's some really good rushing production, and especially when you have a lead and you're trying to control the ball a little bit. If the Packers can get Jacobs going earlier in this game on Thursday night, I really like their chances.
A couple thoughts really quickly. The Detroit Lions are not going anywhere. The Detroit Lions are going to be formidable again this season because if you actually think about the way that game started, they succeeded. They got Green Bay in 3rd and long several times early on, but Jordan Love was just that darn good. The pass protection and the blitz pickup was that darn good, and the receivers made plays.
Yep.
But Detroit actually did succeed in getting them into 3rd and long the way they wanted them to. So in this matchup, Green Bay has to find a headwind. They have to be able to get those into more 3rd and manageables because you can't always expect that. Now, I will say, a little bit of consternation, mostly on my part, about J.J. McCarthy being the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. If you go back 2 years ago, maybe Jordan Love got robbed of that with how he performed in the final stretch of that game against the Saints, even though Kenneth Walker ended up being the NFC Offensive Player of the Week that particular time because he had 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. Be that as it may, Jordan Love was incredible in the game against the Lions. They need that Jordan Love again. They need to protect him. They need to be able to work around him. But I'm telling you guys this, and I continue to say this, this is not a detriment. This is not a dig at all in the Indianapolis Colts. But you and I were there for training camp, and we saw what that looked like when it was Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, and the Colts won last weekend. Kudos to them. Watching that gave you an appreciation for what Jordan Love and the Packers are accomplishing, where this offense is at. And if you don't know what it looks like to have a face of the franchise quarterback, that was the reminder of it's not this easy. This is a very complicated position to play. Jordan Love is a good football player, and his future is incredibly bright.
Yep.
And these are the type of matchups where I think it's really going to show. So I think if Jordan Love shows up, if they protect him, the Green Bay Packers are going to get to 2-0 on this young campaign. He's Mike Spofford. I'm Wes Hockwitz. We thank you as always for joining us on Packers Preview, brought to you by Microsoft Copilot. A ton of content up on Packers.com right now. I wrote a story actually about Edgerrin Cooper. Micah Parsons mentioning that he has him on his fantasy football team. Got him 36 points from that performance against the Lions, but also why Cooper, what he did against the run, another bright spot of this Packers defense. Mike has a column actually looking at the pass protection for Jordan Love and the job that Josh Jacobs and Chris Brooks did around them. Your One Last Look column, as you mentioned, will also be up tomorrow leading into the game. And a whole lot more from our video department, our wonderful folks on the website, the app. Be sure to check it all out on Packers.com. And until next time, for Mike Spofford, I'm Wes Hockwitz. We'll see you later.